Hey, everybody, it's your girl Planet Ty on deck. I hope you guys are having a great day, afternoon, and or evening whenever you guys are seeing this. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in with me today. You guys already know I appreciate that. Today, I'm going to be sharing the story about a serial killer named Joseph Roy Metheny. If you guys want to hear the information that I put together about some of the most heinous things that this guy did, got away with, and then had to pay for, all you guys got to do, stay tuned. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for coming back. Without further ado, let's jump into this true crime. So Joseph Roy, nicknamed Joe Metheny, was born March 2nd, 1955, and he was an American serial killer and sexual assaulter. Definitely not the type of names or titles that you would want following your name in any time, right? Now, this guy was originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and he once said that when he was growing up, he was neglected as a child. He was one of 6 children, and he said that his mother was always away from the home as she worked, and his father was a known alcoholic who was always roaming the streets and never spent much time with the family. Now, his mother, she said at once upon a time that, she was working multiple jobs to pay the bills to take care of the 6 kids because she didn't really receive any help from his father. Now, Joe remarked that he often felt depressed, and in his early childhood, his father was actually killed in a car accident. The whole thing about his father being killed in a car accident was nobody actually knows for a fact what caused the accident. Because he was a known alcoholic, it was speculated that perhaps he was under the influence when it all happened. So that was, there was a lot of hurt and pain for the family surrounding not just his death, but what could have potentially caused it, meaning that, he could have caused his own death because he was not in his right state of mind. Now, Joe was said to, he was already depressed because of multiple other feelings, and he expressed that he and his siblings were often left alone, or that they would be dropped off at relatives' houses at different times and said to be treated like they were orphanage children of sorts, or like what did they say, adoptive foster care children is what he said in a statement. And he said that, like his mother would take him to a different relatives, and sometimes just friends of hers or acquaintances that she had just met. She would take him and some of his siblings to their house and drop them off for weeks at a time, and he wouldn't see her or his father. So that left him in a very depressed state of mind, and he was, always concerned about, he didn't know what was coming next or how anything was going to play out. So his early childhood development is he did not have a stable living situation. He also once claimed, while asked in an interview, that his mother was deceased, right? However, she refuted that statement, saying that she was very much so alive, and she spent most of her time working as a waitress, a barmaid, and a food truck driver. Now, Joe's mother, I guess she felt that he had the ability to kind of embellish the truth, if you will. I mean, saying someone's deceased when they're not is not an embellishment, it's an outright lie. So in other times, she would say that, he was known to kind of embellish the truth or whatever. But I think, for most of us hearing it, a lie is a lie is a lie. So anyhow, she further stated that she worked really hard to give her kids a good family life, and they never went without a meal, and they never stayed with family members for a prolonged period of time, or friends of hers or acquaintances. So basically, she refuted everything that Joe said in earlier statements, okay? She said it didn't happen, and where did he get this from? I don't know. So, at the end of the day, we really don't know who's telling the truth, whether it's Joe's mother or was it him. So, Joe's mother went on to say that as a kid, that he was a very polite child, and he had above average grades, and he was a student who was always, happy and healthy, and, and he was an all-around good person. Now, one thing that I do know to be true is most of the times parents will say good, notable things about their children, as their children are an extension of them. So it's not, hard to believe that his mother would say wonderful things about her own child. That makes sense. So if she's honest in that part, it leads me to believe that she very well could be honest in the part when she said, that he did not go without as a child, and he didn't stay with other people in a foster living situation for long periods of times and all that. She very well could have been telling the truth about that as well. But you guys light up the comments and let me know. One, have you guys ever heard this story? And two, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Joe embellished a part of his childhood development, or do you think his mother was actually putting on? Now, in 1973, when Joe turned 18 years old, he decided to join the Army, where he claimed that he served in the Vietnam, and he became addicted to heroin. However, his mother, once again, came to clean up the story, right? So his mother said that, to her knowledge, Joe had only served in Germany, and that he never was in the Vietnam. She said she had no recollection of him serving in Vietnam, and the circumstances of his service were reported as unverified in press reports. So again, from, not just, early on in his early child development until his young adulthood at 18 years old, it seems that Joe had a way with stretching the truth. Again, embellishing what really happened, or different things that he said when unsubstantiated. Now, I'm spending some time on this part of this story right here, because later on in the story, you're going to see, and be able to decide for yourself if you guys believe that Joe was embellishing all the things he did, or if he actually did them. Okay. So, after Joe joined the Army, he barely kept in contact with his mother, and she felt that it was due to his addiction to drugs. So now that he's in the Army, before he used to call her and check in, but now he's pretty much ceased all communication, and his mother just really thinks that he's just out on different soil, been pretty much a junkie at this point. She was not confident at all that he was, using the best of his services and being all that he could be, or that he was trying to better himself. She just felt like he was, using a situation and not for his highest good, but allowing the situation to be as a crutch to kind of like just take him down to a lower level. So somewhere in the 1990s, Joe started being called Tiny. Now, you guys, have you guys ever seen before that the biggest people are usually called, the most delicate or cute names, stuff like that? Well, Joe, when he was called Tiny, he stood 6'1", and he was known to be a very big plus-size guy weighing more than 300 plus pounds. So to call him Tiny as a nickname was entertaining for some people to hear. But it was also said that people in his area thought of him as intelligent and well-spoken. So the people who interacted with him pretty much during that era, they thought well of him. They said, he was respectful, he was intelligent, he was easy enough to get along with, and that was actually all great. But his nickname at the time was Tiny. Now, during the time that Joe's nickname was Tiny, he managed to keep a job as a forklift driver. Now, although it's been a lot of his time in bars and doing a lot of heavy drugs like crack cocaine and heroin and everything else like that, he managed to keep a job. Now, I know you guys have heard the saying, or a lot of people have heard the saying rather, of people being functional substance abusers as well as functional alcoholics. Well, Joe, he kind of managed to be a jack of his trade, because he was able to kind of feed the demon of addiction, so to speak, and still keep a job and still have the public, the people who knew him or they were around him to, look well enough on him. So that was actually good. So it was like one of those people who was like, functioning, just managing to keep it all together, although they clearly have a lot of demons that they're trying to hold down. He was managing to kind of just keep it together at that time, right? Now, his life took a darker turn in 1994 when he murdered a 39-year-old woman named Kathy Ann Magazer. I may be pronouncing her name wrong. He buried her body in a shallow grave on the side of the job that he was working at. So, things like I said, are looking up for him of sorts, right? He has a job. His community thinks well of him. His job thinks well of him. They trust him to drive a forklift for them. And he's been doing so for some time. Now, another report actually said that he lived on the property by his job. So he used that as an opportunity, like, okay, I have access and I have ability to go ahead and to harm somebody and actually bury them right there on the side of the job that, that employed him, which was, think about how scary that would be if you were to be his employer per se, or even a coworker, and you were to make a chilling discovery like that, right? So Joe said he dug up Kathy's body 6 months after burying her, so he could remove her head, put it in a box, and throw it in a trash can. Right? So I don't know if this was inspired, based on the drugs he was taking or what was going through his head. But after he had already killed the lady Kathy, he just decides that, well, it's time to dig her up now. And I'm going to decapitate her, put her head in a box, and I'm going to go ahead and bury it, because then I'll feel a lot more comfortable that even if her body's discovered, that they won't be able to identify who she is. Right? Now, articles suggest that Joe's known and connected kills begin in 1995, a few months after his own drug-addicted wife left him and took their 6-year-old son. In a rage, he brought an axe to a location under a bridge where he thought her drug dealers would be lurking. Instead, he found 2 homeless men named Randall Brewer and Randy Pike, and allegedly chopped them to death. Joe was later acquitted of those murders in 1996, but it is largely believed that he had committed them. So we see a pattern. And one of the things that I did not mention early on is one of his big vices, I guess, is that he had a thing for vulnerable women who were substance abusers or alcoholics. Like alcohol or any narcotic, he had a thing for that being his type of victim. If you guys think about the pathology of different serial killers in the cases, right? And how it always seems to unfold, they have this certain thing about them where it's a preference for them, right? They have a certain type of people who they go for time after time, and they have a reason for it. Usually it's rooted in some kind of a childhood trauma. And in this particular case, I think it had something to do with the fact that Joe's father, he was an alcoholic. So the women that he would to seek to slaughter would be known substance abusers and or alcoholics, or a combination of both, right? And so I think this was him kind of reliving a part of his own child trauma, and not just that, his own sick fantasies when he was actually committing these crimes. So when he went to go, excuse me, his wife, who was a substance abuser, when she left him, she had enough. They had multiple arguments, domestic violence, and there was even some suspicion of cheating in there. And we all know that that's a recipe for disaster anyhow. But when they finally did split, he was looking, well, it's alleged that he was looking for her drug dealer under the bridge so he can kill him. But what he was truly looking for, other people thought that at that time, Joe was actually frequenting the neighborhood, okay, of a lot of, the area had a lot of prostitutes there, and it was a rivalry between different homeless men. Now, Joe used to be friends with some of the homeless men over there because he, too, used to stay like under the bridge areas with them at different times. So one of his friends, who was one of the homeless guys, it was a dispute over somebody stealing a weapon. Okay, so the theory is that Joe, when he killed the other 2 guys, Randall and Randy, it was actually because of a weapon dispute. Somebody was supposed to have allegedly stole a weapon. So where's the truth in that? If he actually killed the guys, or allegedly, because he was acquitted, okay? So if he actually attempted to kill the guys over a weapon, or because he was waiting for his ex-wife's drug dealer who never manifested and he took his rage out on them, I don't know the facts of what really happened. I wasn't there, and most of you guys were not either. But light up the comments and let me know your thoughts, because guess what? That's what the comments section is for. I want you guys to weigh in, okay? So he was acquitted. Now, ultimately, Joe confessed to an array of transgressions that included eating and grinding up his victims' body parts, which he would then mix with pork and beef that he served to customers at his roadside open barbecue pit stand. It's reported that's how he got the nickname the Cannonball, the Cannibal, right? So the thing about that is, guys, so he's driving, he's a forklift driver. We already know he did that for a period of time. Well, maybe as a side hustle or another gig, he decides, he loves cooking. He loves cooking what? He loves barbecuing. So he opens up this barbecue place, just a pit where he sells sandwiches off. And he decides this is a great way for him to make money. Now, somewhere in behind the scenes, he was already a serial killer, and he was already kidnapping and killing women. Now, the thing about it is, he also allegedly killed a couple men. But when he was doing that, some of the reports suggest that he was actually eating their body parts, freezing their body parts, and cooking their body parts. So after hearing a story like this, I'm sure some of us will do a double take on the, as you pass by on the freeway or you get off or something like that, you're driving through town and you see somebody selling barbecue and it may smell amazing, right? But how many of us may second think if we actually want to go get some of that meat now, just unsure of who's behind the pit and what exactly we're eating, right? I don't know. But after putting together this story, it definitely made me think twice, right? So Joe said, after purchasing cooked meat from the, no, he did not. Later, while on trial, Joe said, quote, I cut the meat up and put it in some Tupperware bowls, then put it in a freezer. I opened up one barbecue stand. I started selling beef. I had real roast beef and pork sandwiches. They were very good. The human body taste was very similar to pork. If you mix it together, no one can tell the difference. So if you guys have ever tried eating human flesh at home, keep it to yourself and go repent. No, I'm kidding. But if you guys know what he's talking about, then you do. And I don't know, but one thing I will say is that a lot of animals that we eat, for the people who are actually carnivores, the meat eaters, right? A lot of the stuff does taste the same. Like, for instance, to me, chicken tastes like rabbit, right? And for other people, I've heard other people say that frog legs taste like chicken. So it's not hard for me to believe, or it's not such a stretch for me to believe that human flesh may taste similar to pork. I don't know. And I also don't ever want to try it. But he did, and that's what he said. In November 1996, Joe killed Kimberly Lynn Spicer in mid-November by stabbing her with a knife. And as if that wasn't horrible enough, on December 8th, the same year, 1996, he kidnapped Rita Kemper and attempted to sexually assault her. According to prosecutors, he shared drugs with Rita in the trailer where she was living at the pallet factory. She refused to have sex with him and ran out of the trailer. So he chased her, beat her, dragged her back to the trailer, and then pulled down her pants and attempted to assault her. Rita said he had attempted to murder her, saying, quote, I'm going to kill you and bury you in the woods with the other girls. She escaped through a window of the trailer and fled to police officers in the area. So big kudos to Rita for getting away. Unfortunately, she was one of those type of women who met the same profile as the other women that he had assaulted or even murdered. As said by him, is that he had this certain type, and Rita fit the type of one of the women, just meaning, either working in prostitution or addicted to some kind of a substance, whether it be alcohol or a strong narcotic. Now, Joan then asked a friend to help him bury the body of Kimberly, which he had been hiding at his job since killing her a month earlier. The friend reported it to the police on December the 15th, 1996, and Joe was arrested and charged with her murder the same day. I personally say kudos to the friend, because if that were me, I'm not the friend that you tell something like that. I don't have any friends that would ever tell me something like that, because I cannot allow you to make me an accessory, so I will have to tell on you. So I understand exactly why his friend took the action that he did. So, Joe was arrested the same day. The owner of the business was also arrested with Joe as they left a Christmas party and was charged as an accessory after the fact for allegedly disposing of evidence. Joe soon began confessing to other murders, as well as that of Kimberly. He led police to the shallow grave where he buried Kathy's decapitated remains. Much of her skull was missing, but the police were able to identify Kathy from her dental records. So now that Joe's caught up in this thing, and now that his friend told on him when he asked him for help, okay, now the story's starting to unravel. Like an onion has layers, so does his story, so does his lies, and so does all of his murderous acts and crimes, okay? And they're starting to unfold now, okay? Police said that he had chosen young white sex workers who were addicted to heroin and cocaine. The killings also involved brutal sexual assaults. He was indicted for killing He was also indicted for killing a 28-year-old named Tony Lynn in Gracia. But those charges were later dropped for lack of evidence. This is where it sucks if you're the family member of somebody who was murdered by a savage person like this, because if there's not enough evidence and the case is dropped, the likelihood that they're going to retry it again and get a win is not so promising. So that had to be deflating for them. Joe claimed to have also killed 3 other prostitutes along Washington Boulevard in Baltimore, although there was no evidence of most of the crimes other than his confession. Now, remember earlier in this true crime when I said his mother said he has a way about stretching the story, right? So we really don't know. I don't know if Joe confessed because he already knew he was caught, or if he added additional things on to ad-lib the story because he was always used to doing that throughout his early childhood development and young adulthood. So we really don't know if he actually did these things or if he just said he did these things, right? Joe was tried in 1997 in the Rita case and was given a sentence of 50 years for kidnapping and attempted sexual assault. He was acquitted of attempting to murder her. That's very ironic to me, why they would charge him for 2 things and then acquit him on the other. But again, speculating, they're probably saying it wasn't enough evidence. But how is it evidence of one but not the other? I don't know. He was sentenced to death in 1998 for the murder of Kimberly, and at his sentencing hearing, he said that he committed the murders because, quote, I enjoyed it. I got a rush out of it. I got a high out of it, and I have no real excuse other than I like to do it, unquote. So the whole thing about it is I don't know if he's putting up this bravado as a tough guy because now he's in prison and he really knows that there's no way out of this thing, like regardless of what's to happen. I don't know if it's considered to be a badge of honor for serial killers to claim the lives of more people than they actually took because they'll sound bigger and badder and they'll go down in history with their name memorialized and all that as one of the crappiest people ever. I don't know if that was his angle or if he was just one of those people who just really had a compulsion for lying, right? I'm not sure about that. But in August 1998, he pleaded guilty to murdering and robbing Kathy, and prosecutors sought the death penalty in that case as well. He received a sentence of life in prison. His death sentence was overturned in 2000, and the sentence for murder of Kimberly was reduced to life without parole. The rationale for the death penalty was that the murder had been committed during a robbery, but the evidence indicated that the robbery was not the motive. So he said he attempted to rob Kimberly, and when he attempted to rob her, he accidentally killed her. She ended up dead while he tried to rob her, but he didn't intentionally kill her. But I'm thinking, shouldn't that have qualified for a second-degree murder charge then, manslaughter? I don't know why that would be overturned altogether, or what did they say? The evidence, yeah, I don't understand that, because I would think that would have qualified for a second-degree murder charge, murder in the heat of passion. On August 5th, 2017, Joseph Roy Metheny was found dead in his cell at the Western Correctional Institute in Maryland. So, after everything was all said and done, Joe was found in his cell unresponsive. The guards, it was brought to their attention at some point. They tried to revive him, but it was too late, and they have no idea what the cause of death truly was. So, they can't say it was natural causes. Right now, they're saying they have no idea what the cause of death was. One of my speculations is that it was probably karma coming right back to knock at his door the same way he had brutally knocked at the door of others. But I don't know. You guys light up the comments and let me know your thoughts. Weigh in. What did you guys think about this true crime? If you guys are new here, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tell anyone and everyone, your girls over here telling you guys about serial killers and this true crime show. And I'm talking all over myself because I'm human. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for being on deck. Like I always say, there's always another story to be told. But for now,